October 18th. We have, well, first of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Byron Campbell, your host, co-host Chris Diali. Good evening, Chris.
Good evening, Byron, and good evening to viewers and listeners and all of those on the various social platforms that you're joining us on. It's happy to have you again. And you're on the eve of celebrating a new public holiday.
That's correct. But Chris, I want to tell our viewers, our listeners, that we have a special program tonight for you. First of all, it's different. It's different. It's an hour and a half long. This part of the program, first 15 minutes, we have a guest who will be talking about the holiday tomorrow. That's National Heroes Day. And following that, we have another hour. So the show is an hour and a half, 90 minutes, and we will have a call-in segment. We'll explain more about the call-in segment for you, but stay with us. We have a very interesting program. We'll take a short break before to hear from our sponsors, and stay with us. We'll be right back.
Community Forum comes to you in association with the Grenada Development Bank.
The choice to finance your education is clear. Try the Grenada Development Bank Won't You Dare. Our special student loan was designed with care for your growth, development, and welfare. This is how champions are made. Take on that challenge. Don't ever be afraid. Our special student loan will come to your aid with 100% of your study costs being paid. Vulnerability is but a temporary condition, and conquering it is strictly ambition. You can secure victory despite your position with a loan for accommodation, books, and tuition. We see your potential. We notice your drive. So on your marks, get set. Let your dreams come alive. Don't let hurdles of doubt get in your way, because you are the future. Contact GDB today. Our special student loan is just one application away. Grenada Development Bank. Development through financing.
Good evening. Welcome back, viewers. Our guest this evening is Jackie Alexis. She is joining us via Zoom. She was on a minute ago, but we've lost our connection, a technical issue. But she's, of course, Jackie Alexis is the chairman of the National Celebrations Committee. And this committee, Chris, has to do with the celebrations tomorrow. That is how the day is used to recognize, celebrate our heroes, our national heroes. So we await her. Once she joins us, we will move to her, you know? Yeah, naturally.
I think, Byron, when you look at what it is they plan for tomorrow,
Yeah.
I understand the plan is an ecumenical service. It starts with that.
At the stadium.
At the stadium, and then they move into, I think it's a minute of silence at a time in the day, probably after
She's
the
back on,
service.
Chris. I'm told she's back on.
Okay, good, so let's bring her in.
Okay, I understand Ms. Alexis is back on. Good evening. Back on. Good evening. Back on. Good evening. Back on.
Good evening. Sorry, I seem to be having some Wi-Fi issues.
I'm having an echo. Hello, can you hear me now? Hello, good evening. Ms. Alexis, can you hear me? That connection is not good.
She's there. We're not hearing you, Miss Alexis.
There's a lot of echoing going on.
Yes.
Get back to you later once our technicians are able to rectify the problem or the technical issues, Chris. Yeah.
Yes, I was saying, I think the format for the celebration tomorrow is in harmony with what it recognizes the 19th of October to be.
Yeah.
And the vigil on the carnage with the candles and so on, I think is paying respect to those who lost their lives in that tragic event of October 19th.
Yeah.
And I am of the view, being a around on that time.
You were?
Yes.
You're that old, Chris?
Yes, Chris, I am. I am, Byron, I am. So we are children of the revolution, let's put it that way. You might be an adult of the revolution, I'm a child of the revolution. Although I wasn't that young.
So where were you that day, Chris? That day, October 19th?
In those days I was living with my mom who lives in the Pointe Street. So I came from work and I went on, sit on Market Hill to watch the day evolve.
Yeah.
With the tanks, the vehicles coming down with Connie Mayes and heading up on the fort to deal with the issues and so on. So I was very much there, but after you saw those APCs pass by, and then I went down home, and then I always remember about that day, and I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
After the fracas on the fort, and people died and jumped over and all of that and so on, and then you heard the shots of the execution of Morris and the team, and I was there. We didn't know at the time who, but an eerie silence fell over the place, you know, after that. And like, oh my God, what happened there, you know? And obviously there was some execution of some sort. And, you know, it was a real strange, eerie feeling when that took place. And I was right in the environs when it took place, so you felt. So yeah, I think recognition of the traumatic event and the implications it have had for not just the families of those who were executed, but those who went over and died from, you know, when they came to take back the fort and Morris and so on. That is good to recognize it in our history, and it's good to celebrate it in the form that we celebrated it, solemn event and so on. So I think I will compliment the National Celebrations Committee and the chairperson for what they're planning to do. The only, I don't know if it's a criticism, the only thing in it is that I don't know if that is a National Heroes Day. I don't know how much heroes were there in that event that took place. And of course, how we measure that and reconcile it with being a Heroes Day is something we could discuss, I mean, Chris, but, you know.
Yeah, Chris, I mean, that day, the 19th of October, 1983, is still clearly, you know, before my eyes. I remember the day so vividly.
Were you up on the fort?
Yes, for a time. I was 32 years old, Senior Assistant Secretary, Acting PS, Ministry of Work, so I was a technician in the revolution, a revolutionary also, Chris. And that day I had in fact gone into the Market Square because I was told that Morris was going to be there, but he was not there. I'd gone to the fort. That was not a good decision, a good idea at all to go to the fort. I remember, you know, seeing unarmed soldiers and the kind of, the scene in the fort there in the square was, it was almost like a kill or be killed situation. It was not, and I knew that this is not the place I should be. As a young person then, I was hoping that the issues were somehow solvable, that the parties were, I never took sides in the matter, that the parties will come together and resolve for the case of the revolution and for the people of Grenada. Unfortunately, this didn't happen. But the other point of it, and I mean, because of course that led to the invasion of Grenada, you know, that was the 25th, which is a week later. And of course, you look at the geopolitical situation, the fact that there was an invasion. It was interesting, a lot of people forget this, that a week before that, you had the bombing in Lebanon where 241 US soldiers died. And there was a battle armada, aircraft carrier and battleships were going to Lebanon. When this happened in Grenada, they turned back and come to Grenada. That's what actually happened. But the politics of the situation was Reagan, of course, was Reagan was the president. You had an election in America the following year. So it was an easy win for the Reagan presidency to deal with Grenada. You know? So that was the geopolitical, of course, the Cold War, the issues of Cuba, presence here, and linked to the Soviet Union and hegemony. So these were some of the issues that thing. But certainly in terms of the impact of this day, in terms of the senseless killing or execution of so many prisoners that were involved, there's no justification for this, you know, and it's very unfortunate. And I think this is why it's important that we mark this day, because there was a lot of suffering by
Still.
the nation still on this day.
Yeah, and I'm in full support of that. And as I say, I think it's a day that we need to recognize in our history,
Yeah.
document it well, and recognize. I don't know if celebrate is the right word, but
Yeah.
recognize it
yeah.
for what it is.
Yeah.
And it must never be forgotten. I mean,
Yeah.
our young kids now
Yeah.
in their 20s and 30s don't
Yeah.
have the passion and thing that you
Precisely.
and I may
Yeah.
have because
Yeah.
we experience
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And they have not experienced it. So I hope the National Celebrations Committee find a way to do a communication plan that will bring in our young people
Yeah.
in that
Yeah.
historical
Yeah.
moment.
Mm-hmm.
Not a good one, but let them know
Mhm.
what it is and the implications, because
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
people lost their children, lost
Yeah.
their,
Yeah.
their siblings and so
Yeah.
on, family on that
Yeah.
day, and never knew what happened to them.
Yeah.
And I mean, up to today, we still are not sure what happened to the bodies or the remains of Morris and Jacqueline and those and the others.
In fact, there's a program I started looking to. I think it's one of the U.S. national newspaper,
correct,
where they
correct.
have a series of
I heard it advertised.
yes, stories. And part of the issue is, where are the bodies? They're going to be interviewing U.S. personnel that were in Grenada who should know this. So I look forward to this discussion. But of course, Chris, we're going to have an open line later in the program. There's a number of things we want to talk about. We can proceed. One of them is, of course, the war in the Middle East. Palestine, the Israelis. Certainly in the last week but what I want to say, Chris, is that we sometimes believe that something is happening in another part of the world and it's not going to affect us. But I want to say clearly, there is a U.S. CEO from one of America's largest banks, and this is what he said. He says the Ukraine war, compounded by what is taking place in the Middle East in particular, could have far-reaching impacts on our energy and food markets, global trade, and certainly geopolitical relationships. And he's saying that this the most dangerous time in the world has seen in decades right now. So what does this mean for us? So it's important that we understand what's taking place globally and make some preparation in terms of how we anticipate what could happen in the Middle East. But I want to go on, Chris, to say that, the past week in Gaza has not been really rough for the Palestinians in particular. We see that over 1,000 children have been killed. The bombing of the hospital, the displacement of over 1 million people, and the carpet bombing that's taking place. But what is disturbing to me, Chris, is the fact that and I made this point last time on the program, that where we have the powers that be, whether it's European Union, the United States, how do you respond to a situation? What's your role? Are you going to mediate this? Are you going to try to negotiate, bring this to an end? What we've seen is America simply, the first reaction is to deliver bombs to Tel Aviv. And these bombs are used for what? To carpet bomb Gaza. So I think the other thing, Chris, that I noticed that the UN Security Council, Russia put forward a resolution which was supported by the Arab League, by the way, including Egypt and Jordan and Saudi Arabia, for a humanitarian ceasefire, And of course, naturally, the results of the vote in the UN was 5 in favor, 4 against, and 6 abstentions, So it didn't go anywhere. Very unfortunate. So we see what's happening in the Middle East that's continuing. Brazil is coming up with a new draft. And the only way that this draft wasn't supported by the West is because it didn't call out Hamas sufficiently in it. But the focus should be on saving lives, And clearly, when you listen to the commentaries, not on Western media, but alternate media, there's support for the Palestinians. There have been demonstrations in most of the cities around the world last weekend. Well, certainly, the Arab nations are, of course, pointing out the injustices that are taking place in Palestine. The occupation continues, and this is not to say that the act of Hamas is justifiable. But as I've always said, Chris, what are the conditions that brought this on? What brought it to this extent? So I really hope that, and we see that America has dispatched another Armada, another battle
Aircraft carrier.
and other ships, and put over 200,000 of their troops on standby. What are they preparing for?
Well, you know, Byron, this is an unfortunate thing with Palestine and Israel. I mean, those of us who have followed Middle East will know that this is nothing new in terms of the occupation that is being done by Israel in Palestine and the reactions from time to time with missiles flying.
Yeah.
And we can never justify the killing on either side.
Yeah.
It is never a correct thing, and there's no justification for it. My take on the implications for us in this part of the region is that, as you say, oil and food, energy and food is going to increase, because as the world gets more tense, and that part of the world, the Middle East, is known for the supply of oil in the various countries. So we already see prices going up in our region. Yesterday, the price of diesel went to $17 a gallon. Right, and that's the first time I'm seeing diesel at that price, and that's ridiculously high. So that affects us directly in the commercial sector, those of us who use heavy vehicles and trucks and vans and so on. So it is significant for us already. And as the price of food in terms of grain and all of these things increase, we are going to see the knock-on effect for us in various food items, I believe, as we go forward and this war. But even the more frightening thing is the possibility of the expansion of the war, pulling in Lebanon. Right, because already on the northern side of the Gaza, Lebanon is there, and
Hezbollah,
and they're starting to have exchanges of gunfire and other things.
That's correct.
Then you have Iran in the back supporting everything against Israel, and then you have Egypt, who trying to see how they could deal with this influx of Palestinians, which they're not happy to open their border, and because they are not friends with Israel as well. And then, you know, you have all of these attendant countries, and the cancellation by Jordan of the possible meeting of President Biden with these Arab nations.
Jordan and Egypt also,
is a real setback. And you see that is only going to, in my view, escalate the tensions. And we are hoping that the backdoor conversations for negotiations of hostages on either side and so on is something that will continue. But with the escalation of tensions and what is happening, there seem to be no progress in European nations or the U.S. coming as, you know, mediators in this situation. President Biden have taken certain stance with Israel. I don't know if there could be a mediator.
No, they can't be. They can't be. I mean, they've come out clearly and say, look, we are on the side of Israel. They didn't come out and say we're on the side of peace. We are on the side of solutions. They didn't say that. We're on the side of Israel. So Israel has received a carte blanche. Go ahead and do what you want.
And I mean, in the last week or so, 6,000 bombs were dropped by Israel on the Palestinian side in Gaza. And that, I mean,
10,000 people are wounded.
And when I heard a reporter saying, you know, 6,000 bombs in a week. Or
it's carpet bombing. I mean, they're destroying the entire. I mean, you can't select a Hamas fighter in a building. I mean, you can't really.
And then this tragic bombing at the hospital.
No, it's
whether it was Israel or it's Palestine or whatever the case is.
I see, as one of the Arab foreign ministers said, I think Jordan, convince us otherwise. Let's have an independent investigation of the hospital bombing, because the fragments are there. We can verify. It's what's been happening for the past 10 days there.
I mean,
it's the same bombs, it's the same implosion of these buildings.
The world, you know, we are hearing the UN and the UN Secretary General talk about, you know, the impending disaster and the siege of Gaza. In other words, no food, no electricity, no water. I mean, they cut off water because Israel controls the Golan Heights.
This is inhumane. These are crimes, how you call it, crimes against humanity. I mean, they are. I mean, the displacement of 1 million people. You cut off water, food, fuel, electricity. I mean, starvation. These are crimes. You can't do that.
They could cut it off.
And the worst is Israel refused to sign on to the International
Court.
Court of Justice. They refuse.
Yeah, just like
it
the
mean-
US.
It means that they can do anything. They're not accountable.
Yeah.
To anybody. And the double standards is what. Yes, Hamas act was brutal, inhumane, but let's pull out Israel for what they've been doing for the past 74 years.
Yeah, well,
that's the point here.
Yeah, it's,
But anyway, we have other things to talk about,
Yes.
Chris. I could speak about this matter for the rest of the
Yeah, yeah,
evening.
yeah,
I'm so. I think as peoples of the world, and I'm pleased to see the support that the Palestinians are getting internationally. Even Israelis of significance are coming out and condemn what their own country, what their nation is doing. And I'm pleased to see this. And the rallies and the support you have around the world, even in the United States, by the way. And Jimmy Carter, we have to pull out Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter was out saying, and he's written a book on it, calling out Israel for the inhumane and apartheid action that they're taking. I'm pleased to see that. And Bernie, what's his name? Saunders. So we're not alone as this. Chris, the heat wave continues. Climate change matters.
It does. And I am worried. I see we have a system that is off the course, pretty high up from us.
But we need the rain from it, the water from it. We need the moisture
and
from it.
we are probably going to get some rain from it because of the how wide it's extending.
Yeah.
But we have to be careful because, the old addict that October all over, November remember, may not apply because of the heat that we're seeing and what is happening. So probably into December we will have to still be on our P's and Q's for
so
systems.
it may go longer.
That's right.
Because all this heat is being absorbed by the seas. So the heat remains. It's not going anywhere.
And I am, every day you get up, the sun and the heat is phenomenal.
But what is the implication for our agriculture?
That is correct. And I think those of us who have not gone the route of using greenhouses for vegetables, the 6 weeks vegetables, the lettuce and so on, and the cauliflower and all of that, is going to suffer because in open air, the amount of water, unless you're doing drip irrigation, that you have to give the vegetables is going to be serious. Rainwater is always the best water.
It is.
Our water from Nawassa.
It doesn't have the chlorine.
Correct. And that is where farmers are going to be struggling. I mean, tomatoes start getting scarce.
Yeah.
You have cabbages and other things.
Cabbage has been imported from Canada. I saw it. We talked about that last week.
We have
but what's interesting too is that World Food Day is next week. The government is recognizing that, and the theme is water is life, water is food, leave no one behind. But I want to go beyond the rhetoric, and I want to see what resources are being directed to the sector, to really make a difference. Somehow I'm not feeling this. If it's happening, I'm not aware of it.
Byron, just to stop you. I mean, we spoke a lot about agriculture in previous programs with the senator when he was here, and I think the government after the throne speech have highlighted agriculture and food security and all of these things, nutrition and so on, in growing what we do and finding ways to improve that. But as you said, there isn't no tangible, money. In construction we say, unless you didn't see boots on the ground, nothing happening.
Yes.
In agriculture, unless we didn't see some sort of formal way to get the production plan in, is it that we investing in farmers to do greenhouses? What it is we practically doing to alleviate and get climate smart. Because climate smart is a big thing. We had a gentleman here talking about that and how we do climate smart agriculture, the heat that we have in, the issues with water that we have in, pests. We have a serious situation with pests and how we control the pests and all the new diseases that we're seeing. How do we structurally deal with that? And I think the biggest issue in agriculture, labor. We talk minimum wage and increasing the minimum wage, but even with the increase in minimum wage, we can't get guys and ladies to come and work in agriculture for more than 5 hours. And we're talking about 5 hours a week.
So here's the dimension of agriculture, Chris, that I want to go on. That last year, the government announced a special committee. A special committee was appointed on the cannabis issue. That committee, in terms of reference, had to do with coming up with a framework, including policy and of how for a cannabis industry, and assuming that industry includes medicinal cannabis,
medicinal use of the cannabis
and recreational, But so So it's a year gone. Yeah. Are we losing the opportunity that's there? Let me give you some data, Chris, that I collected. That Canada, some industry statistics. Canada and the US dominate the market. It is said that cannabis consumers locally spend an estimated $459 billion. That's US dollars, yeah? In cannabis and cannabis byproducts in 2022, last year.
That is in the US and Canada.
Canada, yeah. One of the most significant areas in the legalized industry is for medical use. That's where the global medical marijuana market size was valued at USD 13.8 billion last year, and is expected to grow at a compound annual growth rate of 21.8% from 2023 to 2025. So it's expanding, and there's money. But what's interesting is look at our neighbors. Let's pull out the closest two to us. What opportunities they're making. Barbados and St. Vincent have tapped or is tapping into this lucrative medicinal cannabis market, or they call it reservoir. They are investing heavily in this industry. Barbados see it as another plank of economic development outside of their two areas, tourism and international business. They see opportunities for research, cultivation, manufacturing, exportation, export and quality controls. They are saying that this is going to be transformational to the economy. And I mean, huge investments. They are going into this in a big way. So the question is, why are we behind? Why is Grenada, why are we, the previous administration talked about it for several years. Something was started, election come, a new government come in, and the other islands are moving forward.
Yeah,
we are not. In other words, there are opportunities. We have that we can, that Grenada, like the other islands, can get on board. Time is of the essence.
Yeah, well, you know, Byron, I don't know if it is about fear of change or what is going to happen.
Yeah.
We have traditionally always been cocoa, nutmeg, and bananas.
Yeah.
And we take bananas out of the equation.
Yeah.
It's now cocoa and nutmeg.
Yeah.
The issue is, could we use the cannabis industry to come back with bananas to augment the banana section?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think the answer is yes, but
Yeah.
every government that looks at this industry have to have the right regulatory framework in place.
Yes.
And not only regulatory, the legal framework and the regulations, so that the industry could be relevantly, properly controlled.
That's correct.
I don't see them doing this and having this done outside of private sector businesses that want to invest in this, because I think the control of the growth of the marijuana has to be in controlled conditions to get the right species, to get the right concentrations, the right thing for the medicinal side. So there's a lot of research. Again, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. These things are out there. Jamaica has moved along pretty much.
Even Barbados is saying, look, we are, as a policy, we are willing to collaborate with other islands.
Correct. And I think the committee, as we have it now, unfortunately, we don't know, because we haven't heard anything from the committee, so we can only assume that the work that was supposed to have been done is not done, and the timelines obviously have not been met. So probably the government needs to relook this committee and the composition of the committee and get it, working to a point where we could give timelines and say by 2025, we expect to be partnering with private sector companies that could set up greenhouses, set up whatever in a controlled environment and start doing that. We have linked with pharma companies that could guide us in what we do on the pharmaceutical side. So, I mean, again, it's one of those things where we're missing the boat. And, a lot of emphasis. I was on a call recently with the National Energy Policy. And when you look at the National Energy Policy, very good work that was done by the government, and I think is an organization that was helping them. Excellent work. But that is good for that. But on the agriculture side, again, we come back to that. It just doesn't seem as though we have this done in such a way that we could get firm things. How are we dealing with pests? Do we set up a particular section in agriculture to deal with pests?
Well, there's a pest management unit.
Yeah, but it hasn't been working as you farmers and will say that this hasn't worked. We had to go there and find things on our own to deal with the pests.
That's correct.
And I just think that we talk about transformation. I think the agricultural sector in its administration and what we do just need to be significantly transformed. I'll give you a good example. We've been talking years about merging cocoa and nutmeg. Where have we been? Where have we gotten with that? And you have to ask yourself if there's political will to do it or not. And we all know the benefits of the merger and what it can bring, but we just don't seem to have the will.
It seems, Chris, I'm a member of the Cocoa Association, I'm a member of the Nutmeg Association. I produce both of them. So I have to attend 2 meetings, there's 2 administration, there's 2 marketing, logic tells you it makes sense to come together. But I agree that the agricultural sector has potential. I'm concerned, Chris, in that yes, we can buy foods, we can import food, and I can tell you that just in the past year we spent $12.8 million in poultry alone.
Remember after Ivan, when ships wasn't coming.
That's the point.
What happened to our food supply?
That's the point. So so we don't wait until a crisis to know. So there's some urgency in us doing this.
That is required.
Urgency.
Let's move to politics, because I know we're going to be inviting the callers to call in and all the
Yeah,
things
they
that
can
we
talk to us on these matters
anything,
too.
yes.
So I hope I hope you're taking notes, viewers, because you can call in. Our lines will be open soon, where you can call and have your say on any of the matters that we are discussing here tonight. The politics, Chris. What about the politics?
Yeah, I am of the view that, I want to take it from a critical view of the opposition, and that is the NNP, and I term it NNP politics.
Yeah.
And I think the current leader of the NNP party and our opposition leader, I am critical of the view that, that I think the party seem to be having, I have to say seem, to be having difficulties in understanding where they need to be as a party in terms of leadership and other issues. And then when you see some of the responses of Dr. Mitchell in Parliament and other areas in the press conferences, I can understand how you could criticize your RGPF after you've been the Minister of National Security for many years, working in the same RGPF. And RGPF works under severe constraints, resource constraints, and yet still does an excellent job in keeping our country safe. And a lot of people will come to Grenada because of that safety element.
Is it irresponsible to say the statement?
Well, I would want to think so.
Yeah,
and I think Dr. Mitchell, and then the recent spat with what is going on in his personal life is another thing that, is not right to be in the public domain in this public way. And, you have to ask the question, if he continues to hang on, what is he doing to his legacy? Dr. Mitchell has been one of our oldest parliamentarians, well respected as a politician in the region, and has done good work in his time. But you need to ask the question, based on what is happening, whether or not this kind of politics by NNP or not good politics is an asset for NDC.
But do you see it as a weakness in the party? I'm talking about the NNP overall, because here you have a situation that clearly the question of leadership arose from the last election. That was clearly one of the issues emerging, because one for the road, and that clearly didn't work. That's an issue. But where are the others in the party? So we know last time Chess was here, he talked about Chester Humphrey. He talked about, and he verified that, in fact, Peter David has formally put forward, written to the party, indicating his intention to contest the leadership. So clearly, but we're not hearing him. In other words, because when you move to the leader of a party, that's the next stage is to be prime minister. So you should be heard. What are your policies? What are you doing in your constituency? What are the issues, critical issue, economically, economic and social, otherwise geopolitical? But we're not hearing him clearly. I think we need to hear more, and if there's other contenders too, to hear them. So I'm uncertain, and the convention is another dimension. There's all kind of reasons put forward why the convention has been delayed, why it's not happening. But as we heard from one of our guests recently, is that the convention is something that's in the constitution of the party, and you cannot or you should not use any other reason not to have your convention. You shouldn't be saying, well, the state of the party in the constituency level is not needs work, and therefore let's delay the convention. You were saying convention is a constitutional matter within our, so it has to be held. So Where is it going? Are you feeling a working and dynamic opposition?
Well, that's the point. I think, I mean, when you, in recent times, when you have listened to Dr. Mitchell, apart from talking about the poverty issue in his press conference, you don't seem to get the feeling that it's strategic in looking at aspects of the current government where they think there may be weaknesses or issues. They talk about the unemployment issue and
we have a caller on the line. We're going to take that call.
I think we should.
Caller, you're on. Go ahead, please. And I just want to say before you come on, caller, this is for not for you specifically, but for all callers. Make your point succinct. Make it short. And remember, let's be respectful. Thank you very much. Proceed, caller. Good evening.
Yeah, good afternoon, fellas. How y'all going tonight? Hello?
I can't hear.
Hello,
Yeah, you hearing me?
Yes, we're hearing you pretty low, but go ahead.
Yeah, fella, are you all hearing me? Hello?
Could we get some volume?
We have a little technical issue here, Chris. We need a bit of a volume. That's all. Yeah.
Hello?
Hold on, caller. 1 second, please. Okay, go ahead, caller. We can hear you now. Go ahead, please.
You hearing me clearly now?
Yes, go ahead.
Well, I can't understand what stupidity and foolishness is that about Heroes Day. Now, you want to tell me the things that happen on the fort, it is the worst thing that ever happened in Grenada's history. I hear the government bawling about some nonsense about reflect. How you tell somebody to reflect and you're hurting? How do you tell somebody to reflect on things that happen when I personally see people bottom out, people get damaged? I mean, you can't tell people that. That is, what are you saying to Grenadians in terms of heroes? This is not a hero's day. This is not Morris Bishop is no hero. This man was a violent person. He lived by the sword. He died by the sword. He came in a tragic way, and that's how he went out. When you look at the atrocities that was about the revolution, it wasn't anything good. But going in on the stupidity about Heroes Day, what is so heroic about the day? When you look at the definition of a hero and what acts of heroism did any of these people on the fort commit? The school children, all these were innocent people. You have a problem where you can't solve. Big people, you have to kill one another in violence. What is so heroic about that day? I find that so foolishness. That they're not heroes. These people are convicted criminals that disgrace Grenada. So I don't see this hero days about what, and nobody wants to remember this kind of a thing. And also, let me just tell you about this climate change and all that we're talking about. 1.5 and all kind of a nonsense. I can't understand for the life of it. If the Christian community is saying that when God made the earth, it was perfect, and this and that, how come man could ever destroy this earth with somewhat fossil fuel and all these kind of a thing? That is not possible. As a matter of fact, all this thing that everything is a climate change, The thing that happened in, how you call the place, in Bali or somewhere where in America the other day, where something that they had all this amount of big fires. When you hear the cry, they're saying it's climate change. When you hear the cry, it's some electricity pole. And every single thing people claim in this climate change. There was always earthquakes, there was always war. All these sort of things was always there before. It's nothing to do with any 1.5 Celsius and nothing to do with oil that you have to have clean energy and all this other thing. And as a matter of fact, I was listening to a documentary the other day. All this thing about clean vehicles and vehicles with batteries. To dispose that battery, it will be 10 times worse for the environment. And I hear the batteries exploding on some of those vehicles. But to get back to the issue of this climate change, ain't nothing new under the sun. No fossil fuel that causing it.
Thank you very much, caller. Thank you very much, caller. I think we made the point. We're very happy for your intervention here, Chris. Which one you want to take? You want to take the Heroes Day? You want
no,
to take
I want to take the climate change because I disagree with the caller.
Right,
and we have proof right here in Grenada.
Yes.
And I will just cite to the caller, the increase in sea level rises is not happening by chance. We have the melting of the glaciers in the North Pole and southern areas, and that causes the sea level to rise. Petit Martinique, as a good example, lost a section of its
Yeah,
field,
yeah.
and the government had to come in and put in new seaside walls to protect and get back the land. This is not no thing where we're conjecturing. It is actually happening. When you talk about the bleaching of the corals because of the heat in the ocean, it's not conjecture. These are things that are actually happening in front of us. So I hear the caller about everything is climate change. Everything is not climate change. What we're seeing is the consequences of
It's a climate
that
crisis.
1.5
In fact,
degree
it's a crisis
increase
now.
in
It's a
world
crisis
temperatures.
now,
Yes,
Chris,
that's
you know.
right. So, I mean, we had plants growing the other day in the Arctic. That never happened because the permafrost is melting at an alarming rate. What causing the permafrost to melt? That is a question the caller had to answer. And the answer to it is our increase in
Millions
world
of people have
temperatures.
been displaced.
Yeah,
You
so-
have huge forest fires. You have flooding.
I would disagree with the caller on that.
Absolutely, absolutely. There are facts on this. Chris, on the Heroes Day question, yeah? And this is one of the questions I had for the chairperson. I was going to say, look, the process of selecting heroes or determining our heroes should have been done, in my view, prior to a Heroes Day being recognized. Because the question is, who are we recognizing tomorrow specifically? Yeah, who
Or
are
not,
we here
probably
or
not.
not? Yeah, but the question of, I mean, there was a revolution in Grenada. And I was part of it, Chris, and I'm proud. I didn't agree with everything, but I certainly, it's what it is. It is what it is. And what happened on the 19th was unfortunate, I think, very cruel in terms of the killing of certain people. It's a day of recognition for the families. Many of them, their hurt hasn't gone away. You know, a young man was on, I know it personally from Birch Grove, where he lost his arm in the gunfire. And many others who died and several injuries. So I think it's a day that we need to pause and recognize the sacrifices of these people and the hurt that occurred and what happened. You know, it's part of our history, it's who we are. You know, the lessons learned also, we should talk about it, the pro and the cons of it, you know. And these are the things of failures, the lessons out of that to ensure that it couldn't happen again, you know, particularly the events of the 19th.
And this is what I said earlier on of reconciling the name of the day with the events on the day.
Yeah.
And that is where I think the National Celebrations Committee needs to relook and understand the sensitivities of people who had personal loss and who are traumatized by the events of the day.
We have a caller. Yeah. Caller, go ahead, please. You're on.
Hello?
Good evening.
Oh, nothing.
Good evening, caller.
Right. Where's that? Hold on a minute. Yes. Hold on a minute, please.
Sure.
I want to load it. Right. Concerning tomorrow, to me, what I heard, because we were talking about the lady that should have come on the program tonight, and due to technical problems, she's not there. But I will have heard them on another program saying they are not naming heroes tomorrow. They're not naming heroes tomorrow.
Okay.
So I just was
appreciate that very much.
Other one next to you, Mr. Campbell, was saying that tomorrow they're naming the heroes.
No, I didn't say that.
No,
I didn't say that.
No,
So that's all I had to say.
No, sorry. What we said, because we understand the fact that the process of selecting heroes, policy and the framework, this is something to be done.
To be done, yes.
Yeah. So, and to some extent, there will be consultation and the community will be involved. That's what I understand of the process, you know. So tomorrow is not to identify anyone, but just a day of reflection or I don't know.
How the day is set up is clearly like that.
You have a service.
You have a 1 minute silence, and then you have the candlelight vigil.
So it's a solemn kind of thing,
So
candlelight, and I think public transportation is going to be offered.
Correct.
We are told that persons were supposed to contact their constituency offices and so on to arrange transportation. So it's a holiday, and yes. So Where were we before, Chris?
We were talking about the politics.
The politics, yes.
And the legacy of Dr. Mitchell.
Yes, yes. So Chris, you're saying essentially that it's time for transition for...
well, I mean, if I'm not a political guru, but just using common sense.
You sound like one, though.
You know, if the longer NNP takes to have that convention and to name a leader, current or otherwise, the issue is going to be what time frame, because this new government is into 18 months. Just now it's going to be 2 years they're in. And the more we take, the opposition takes to come forward with their plan and their strategies, I think the longer that takes, it works to the advantage of the ruling party.
We have another caller online, Chris. Hold. Caller, good evening. You're on. Good evening, caller. Go ahead, please. Oh, we lost that caller, that beep.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Hello?
Hello, I can hear you. Go ahead, please. Listen on your phone. Turn your volume down. Turn your volume down. Listen on your phone. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. Hello?
Yes, go ahead,
ma'am.
I want to call the program where they're calling there.
Yes, you're on the program in the calling section.
Eh?
You're on the programs. Make your point.
My point, what I was saying, Bishop was not a good man. Because Bishop, they go to a lot of wickedness. Can kill a lot of people.
Okay, thank you, caller. Thank you. So again, Byron, we have, and this lady sounds as a mature person that would have experienced certain aspects of the revolution. So I suspect she's speaking from that and her experiences.
So so it'd be different perspectives. So for example, some person might call out Eric Gary as a national hero. Not for me, Chris.
Based on the transformation that he did in 1951.
Not for me. He does not. Based on his personal behavior, what's reported, does not for me. So you'll have different perspective. Everybody will have but in a national approach, there would be decisions and conclusions, you know. I look forward to the process, though.
Well, I do, because I don't think it must be structured around politicians and their contributions or not. I think there are a lot of other people in our society that would have made real significant contribution.
Chris, still with the politics.
Male and female.
Go back to the politics, Chris. But are we seeing, in terms of young people taking on political responsibilities now? I mean, the NDC is certainly a younger generation of politicians. Oh, we have another caller online. So, caller, go ahead, please. You're on.
Yeah, good night, panel.
Good night.
For Mr. Campbell.
Yes, good evening.
I kept this article for 39 years. It says, Quiet Lies Over the Land. It was written by Peter Carlson. Alexis Simon left hand was shot off above his elbow almost 5 months ago, but he said that he still can feel the missing hand wiggling. Is that the guy from, you mentioned someone who lost an arm from Birch. Is that the guy from Birchgrove? I think his name is Alexis Simon.
I'm not familiar.
I met him many years ago, but I just lost track.
Go ahead, please, though.
I went ahead. I just gave him my 2 cents.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, as Byron said, there will be a lot of people from that time that will have various injuries, maimed some people, injuries that they had to watch at the loss of an arm for the rest of their life. And the memory is there from where that happened, you know. So there are a lot of things.
And you'd have, depends on where you are, because some Rastas at the time were illegally held and how they were treated and all that. So certain persons were arrested and held in prison during the large period of the counter-revolutionaries. You know, so as I say, you know, we need an open conversation on this, how we reconcile this and how we discuss it open. And I'm saying what's important is the lessons learned from this.
When you look at the generational shift, in the next 20 years, there'll be very few of us around that understand the passions or not on the of the events that happen on that.
It'll be history.
It will be history, and there wouldn't be the passions that you and I may have, or some of the other callers may have on things that we will have suffered as a result of October 19. So time, as I say, will heal certain things or move certain things on. And certainly this will be the case with this, but we still, I think, for historic reasons, we need to chronicle that and get some. And I think one of the biggest things with October 19th is the fact that we never knew and don't understand where the bodies of the people who were executed on the 19th. And that requires closure for some people, to bury their loved one and so on. So I think there is still some open issues that, is
Chris,
concerned.
in the politics again, the NNP, following the year in office, this came, I think, from the leader of the opposition, gave the NDC a failing grade for the first year. We have to take a short break, but we'll come back. How we react to this, how we react to this. Is that a fact, fiction, what is it? Viewers, stay with us. We'll be right back.
The choice to finance your education is clear. Try the Grenada Development Bank Won't You Dare. Our special student loan was designed with care for your growth, development, and welfare. This is how champions are made. Take on that challenge. Don't ever be afraid. Our special student loan will come to your aid with 100% of your study costs being paid. Vulnerability is but a temporary condition, and conquering it is strictly ambition. You can secure victory despite your position with a loan for accommodation, books, and tuition. We see your potential. We notice your drive. So on your marks, get set. Let your dreams come alive. Don't let hurdles of doubt get in your way, because you are the future. Contact GDB today. Our special student loan is just one application away. Grenada Development Bank. Development through financing.
Concerned about your general health and wellness?
Do you need to know your complete blood count, lipid profile, or HbA1c?
Maybe you're an athlete or work in an environment that requires regular drug screening.
Interested in STI screening? What about renal, liver, or thyroid tests?
All these tests, plus hundreds more, are available at Allied Laboratories.
At Allied Laboratories, we are committed to providing the best service with accurate results. We now have 3 fully equipped locations to better serve you. You can contact our Grand Anse branch at 403-3488. You can contact our Grenville branch at 410-3488. Or you can contact our newest addition, the Guelph branch, at 404-3488. Or send us an email.
We're taking care of Grenada.
Welcome back, viewers. You're on Community Forum, and here with my co-host Chris Diali, and we have an open line tonight. You can call in with your comments or your questions. We'll have a discussion. Chris, gun violence. We've seen, you can say an escalation, but certainly an increase in violence, particularly homicides and gun violence in recent times. In your view, what has been done? How are we dealing with this? I mean, you have one side as the police action, but how are we shaping or influencing behaviors to reduce? And also, what's the kind of image that we're getting in the wider community?
I think the issue, and I think our Prime Minister has dealt with it the last time they met in Trinidad in a CARICOM forum, where they recognize as an issue for our countries and the border, the porosity of the border as relates to guns coming in. I think it was this week Trinidad had a seizure of some arms and ammunition in a particular part of Trinidad, and what was stunning is the type of rifles and the type of guns that were seized, but even more concern was the bullets and the ammunition seized were armor piercing, which means that these guys were bringing in weaponry and ammunition to deal with the police with the armor vest and so on. And that worries you because it's like an escalation you're seeing of what is happening. And Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago said clearly there's a national security issue. And it is, because when the police and your armies and your security forces are expected to protect the country in its various forms and these things. They're now in serious danger with that type of thing. So when you look at that, Byron, I think there is a serious call, and I think our Prime Minister dealt with it and said that they're going to approach it from a number of points. A legislative point of view, and of course, how we control the borders and greater exchange of information from country to country on what we see happening so that they could try and put a stop or a reduction or mitigate the risk of all these arms and ammunition coming in. There's a lot of talk about Venezuela and the movement of arms through, whether it's the yachting community, whether it's the normal boats moving and so on, and how we deal with that and monitor that more closely. So, but it is a concern for us because our gun-related violence in this country have increased this year significantly. You're hearing about what guy got shot the other day in Lansopina, wherever, and is in the hospital. We have had other incidents during the year, the one in Woburn, and execution-style things. So there's a number of things that, to us in Grenada, that is threatening the safety umbrella that we have because of this free movement of weaponry and ammunition.
One of the things, Chris, that we have not heard it mentioned is that the U.S. policy of returning
gun amnesty.
Returning, call them criminals, but people who've served time for various crimes in the U.S., they've been deported. How are they being monitored? Are they part of the problem that we have now, and how is this being dealt with, managed? But another dimension of the crime, Chris, and the lawyer, Jerry Edwin, was on the news tonight, actually, talking about sexual crimes. And it's alarming in that when I say sexual crimes, that's crimes against women and children, that and I've said this before, I mean, we need to know these numbers. In the 2023 assizes, we have a total of 116 matters. 50% of those matters are of a sexual nature. And of those, 40% are with intercourse with minors and children. This is not a good situation at all. But what the lawyer was saying tonight was that, and based on his interfacing with the court system, that he was calling out bus drivers and conductors in this particular situation, that all the young school children are vulnerable because of that kind of association taking place. But someone was telling me that we've always had these crimes, but now people are coming forward more, which is a good thing, But this is one too many.
Yeah, well, I want to talk a little about the returning criminals. I think returning criminals that come through the system, once they're deported, the government and the police force is away. And there is some monitoring, and I'm not sure how strong the monitoring is, but there is monitoring in terms of they know who they are, they know the crimes that were committed and the time served for the crimes, so they understand from that point of view, as far as I'm aware. Now, how they monitor them and what they do is another thing, and I think the real issue for me, I'm coming to your sexual crimes now, is if we have returning nationals that are from that realm, children abusers and pedophiles and these kind of people, and how strongly we take control and monitor these people. We are limited in resources, and in cases like that, you always hear the police come out and say we need the help of the community to assist with these things and how we can do it, because it's to protect all of us. But going back on the sexual crimes issue, Byron, I have said in this program and other programs, we have always had this issue. It has been kept under the carpet for too long and for many years. And we have had all people of all strata in the community committing these crimes. We have a lot of things going on with husbands and wives. We have a lot of things going on with the children in those homes. Stepmothers and single mothers and the people that, there's a lot going on, and a lot of people keep quiet because of economic conditions or other social conditions that they need to manage.
That's correct,
So it is one where, yes, it is positive to see a lot of the people coming out more and more, but when it gets to the court and you see 50% or more of the crimes on the docket being related, you know that we still have a problem. And the problem could even be worse than what we're seeing at 50% in the court. And because there are a lot of cases that probably don't come forward.
Yeah, that's correct.
And if that is the case, we as a society have a problem. We, our men, who commit these things with little children and so on, have a serious problem. And it's vice versa with women as well, committing theirs with young men. But the majority seems to be the male with the younger females.
That's a fact. That's a fact. School children, I mean, they call it minors and children.
Yeah, and when you have, as Jerry would have said, you heard him, associating conductors and busmen with this kind of thing. And we as a society, if we're on bus as adults and we see certain things happening with children, we need to call it out for what it is. I mean, the children probably in dire circumstances, and that's why they engage in these activities or encouraging it. But we as a community and as a society need to call it out, Byron. And as individuals, I can say publicly, I don't want a friend who is an abuser of his wife or his people. I don't want you to be my friend. I don't want you to come and for me to offer you a drink if that is what you're doing. I don't want to be part of that. And I want to let it know publicly that we as men who don't support must come out and say that we don't support that kind of action, you know?
I agree, Chris. I mean, and I think for us, we have a responsibility to stay on board with this and to point it out and to call it out. I like to hear Jerry talking about this. One of the other things Jerry has talked about is flogging, which I don't support, Chris, and I'm not sure, I think you changed your mind about it now, Chris, that you oppose flogging in the courts. You still think it should stay on our books. You don't see it as has a slave mentality.
No, not at all.
And it's wrong. It's inhumane, Chris.
Incarceration or whatever it calls for is punishment.
But
we need to find ways to
I'm not going to take you on tonight on this matter. But I support Jerry on this, and I'm prepared to work with Jerry to ensure that Edwin, to ensure that this law, inhumane law, is removed from our books, Chris. Flogging, dedicate the rest of my life to this cause.
Work in opposite direction.
So we have not a caller, but someone writing on Facebook. Here's the Bob Marisho, I think. Say Alexis Simon was riding on the truck to Fort George with the late Maurice Bishop and many other followers on March 13th. He said 15 minutes later, 2 armored vehicles fired on the truck heading to the fort. He lost an arm in the event. He is still alive and perhaps living in Birch Grove, St. Andrews. Should the state give him a pension? This person says yes. In other words, here's a young man, a schoolboy at the time, school child at the time, that got caught up in the crossfire, lost the arm, struggled most of his life in terms of earning a livelihood. Should the state support him in terms of some kind of allowance, a pension, so to speak?
Well, I mean, we're talking a lot about the Windrush generation. We're talking a lot about reparations. Probably we should come up with something for the people that were affected by this particular tragedy on that day, and do some analysis and find out how many are there and what can be offered in terms of, I don't know if reparations is the right word, but obviously there have been a lot of suffering. And the young man that they're highlighting in the comment there obviously is somewhere we could probably start. And I would be in full support of those kind of initiatives, because the fact is, a lot of people were traumatized by the events of that day, and psychologically and physiologically. So we need to understand that, and if we can help, where we can help, you know. So why not?
There was a lot of discussion on the housing situation recently, Chris. This seemed to be resolved. I don't know. These individuals who were successful were asked to secure a mortgage, and I mean, callers, you can call in and give your views on that if you have an opinion on it. But we heard from the Development Bank, for example, that they are willing to, as a policy, support
the
mortgages for these houses, these properties. So that's a good thing. That seems to be a way out of it. I assume that this would be softer than the regular commercial institutions.
3%.
But assuming that the individuals that were successful have a job, and there are other things that needs to go with it. If they don't have a job,
I think that is part of the vetting process.
That that would be a problem, an issue there. The other thing, Chris, I saw that the EU came out with this blacklisting. Grenada was not part of it this year. Remember last year we were called, but we had to do some fixing here, particularly with the investment CBI program. So I was pleased to hear that, because of course the EU and other countries are, some persons are assuming they are using this to, they have similar programs, by the way, as you're aware. So why blacklist us? You know?
Well, it's always a thing with these countries that they feel better giving us a fish than teaching us how to fish. And the collapse of the banana industry is a good example. And CBI is another one, because they see the investment flows moving from their countries to ours. And we are using it for development in various sectors that we have, which is a positive thing, and I don't understand what is the fear. But of course, anytime money flows in a particular direction away from them, they get concerned. So they're coming up with all kinds of things. Some of our programs, Dominica just got listed as one of the programs that haven't managed well. A recent study came out about how the Dominicans program will have people with passports that had checkered backgrounds, and that is concern. But we don't hear about the English program and how much people have checkered backgrounds as well.
Precisely.
Because nobody does an expose on them.
Exactly.
We have economic citizenship in Canada.
You're familiar with the program. Are we putting too much emphasis from an income generating point of view on our CBI program? I mean, the countries that are involved, and certainly Grenada, because this program now is fundamental to our survival, literally.
Well, the same question could be asked, are we putting too much emphasis on educational services, SGU, which represents 27% or more of our GDP?
And that's one institution.
And that's just one institution and one sector, education services. And your dependence on that, and your question could be asked similarly about that. I don't think so. I think CBI for Grenada is in its infancy stage in terms of the volume and the growth of the program and what the potential is to finance certain sectors that we need financing in. Because, Byron, the reality of it is that all of these islands that we are part of, the OECS, is only one set of sectors we have, tourism, agriculture, some services like education services, and you have construction and so on, and then based on the so we all have really static sectors that we could get revenues from. So what is wrong with Grenada just introduced the creative and the orange sector? What is wrong with CBI and what we're doing there and getting monies from a different level of source that we could offer that says that, we take these monies and we invest it properly?
But there's the vulnerability of it, Chris. So, and we're having this conversation. So, the war, what's happening right now? We saw with the
Ukraine and Russia,
with Ukraine and Russia. America responds, this country responds, and so we don't have control of the factors.
Let me tell you something, Byron. You see people of high net worth, you can't stop them from investing their money where they want. And they will find different vehicles to do it. It may not be a CBI program, but if a Russian oligarch plans to come in Grenada and buy up land and put down some sort of investment in whatever, say fisheries or whatever, who is there to stop that? From an international point of view, you can't tell me where to spend my money and how to spend it. You may put sanctions on what they do and how they move their money and so on. That's a different conversation. But at the end of the day, high net worth people are people that could move their assets, whether it's financial or otherwise, at a certain level of freedom because of where they stand in their worth, their businesses and themselves. So I don't know that we could control that to the extent where we could limit it, but high net worth people are people that free to move with their monies and their assets and whatever it is. And we just have to find in our countries, these small island states, a way to find how we could attract the investment. So for example, we have talked a lot about tourism, medical tourism. That a lot is happening in South America, in Guatemala and these countries. And the question is, can Grenada put down a situation, you want to come and do plastic surgery here, you do your plastic surgery, you recover here in a lovely, lush country with 365 days of sun and so on, sometimes a little too hot, but the point is, are we open to areas and investment in that type of sector?
So that's the point I was coming to, Chris. Which are the sectors, that will generate the sustainable growth or sustainable development, create jobs, because that's crucial. Are we having sufficient of these, you know? For example, we talk about the cannabis industry earlier on. It's going to take a lot of capital. Are we going to attract investors in that sector?
Can we do it through CBI?
Yes, that's
that's
the point.
And
That's the point, yeah.
when I was there as chairman, the thinking then was to expand CBI
Yeah.
beyond tourism projects,
Yeah.
beyond
Well,
projects.
that's where we see it going,
in
and a lot of
ICT.
it's in tourism, yeah.
But we do a lot of things in CBI in terms
What
of
about the
infrastructure
agriculture? What about the
development.
agriculture?
Exactly. There's nothing wrong. Cannabis is probably part of agriculture.
Yeah, it is.
And
It
that
is,
is,
yeah.
so is it some way we could expand CBI to deal with sports?
Yeah.
And investment
Sports
in
tourism,
sports,
yeah.
right?
Oh,
Because our football team could never get to the heights that we need them to get to, not from a talent point of view, but from an investment point of view. Because when you look at countries that have done well in football and at the world stage, their countries have invested in their national teams to millions.
Yeah.
Because you have to take the players on, give them the monies that they need, give them the level of training, and it's a constant thing. Small islands like us can't afford it because of our GDP and what we're doing and so on. So the question is, could we use CBI type investment to help us grow these sectors of the economy that we need to? And from where I sit, I think we can. It's just a matter of how we structure it and what we do. And you know, Byron, one of the things probably Grenadians don't know, that some of the people that have Grenadian passports and some of the high net worth people are people who are the second in command in Microsoft, people in different industries. We're talking about high network. Could you imagine we bring 10 of these people together, bring them in a forum in Grenada and say, we have, Prime Minister puts 5 projects in front of them and say, we need your assistance, one in ICT, one in AI, whatever it is.
So the opportunities are enormous. Chris, two positive things that I want to note here. One is that the government is offering free parenting classes to all who wish to participate, transportation, meal, you know, and they have even affirmative action, I call it, where if a young mother has children, they will cover the babysitting, you know, and I think this is excellent because a lot of our young people they have children, but the parenting skills are just not there, and it shows later on in life with the delinquency and other issues that emerge. So, I think this is excellent. I strongly support it, and I see it as it's a great initiative.
We support it 110%.
Great initiative.
You can't say nothing more about it than just giving it your support. You know, I have been in dispute resolution for quite a while.
Right, yes.
And one of the things we're trying to promote through mediation and otherwise is to teach people how to resolve disputes apart from just entering into violent action.
Yes.
So we want to try and do it at school level. You know, for school children, we've seen school children fighting, women and boys tearing up each other, and some of them, you know, using weaponry and so on.
Yes.
Is there another way to understand how to resolve a dispute through that mechanism? And these are things that we do as a senior mediator. I am trying to promote as well and do different level courses for different levels. We did a huge course with the police force the last time. And we graduated quite a number of them in mediation because they see it at their level every day. People will come to them in the police station and say, watch, I will chop up this man down the road. He thief him a full cock or whatever the case may be. And the issue is, how does the police at that level diffuse the situation before it escalates? And you know, that is something we have to do more and more and see how we could get our society to deal with those issues. Because conflict resolution is something that, you know, we forget, even in our own personal lives at home. With our own children, our own spouses and so on. How do we resolve conflict? And it really just boils down to one party sitting back and listening actively. And you have to learn how to do that.
It's a skill.
And shut your mouth, put the emotions away, and just listen to the other side that you disagree with, whatever it is. And then probably by listening, you may really understand truly why they have the discomfort. And that is something that we need to encourage at all levels. You know, and it's important that we do that. So we and I am trying to move in that direction.
Very good skill.
To see how we can help.
The other issue is that, which I thought is positive, that for the first time we have local history being taught in our schools. The release of the junior history of Grenada. Dr. Dow. I really want to congratulate her for that, and the government certainly for
taking the initiative.
It's important. It's really, really crucial. And I just want to highlight that, and as we say, big it up, because I think it's going to make a difference in our people understanding. You must know your history, where you come from.
Yeah,
to know where you're going.
saying that if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat.
Yeah,
so it's important that our young people understand. And Byron, all the years when I was in school doing history, it was always about somebody else's history.
Yes.
The impact of the French on the island, the impact of the English on the island, and slavery and all of that brought on. But never talking about the Caribs and the Arawaks and what they contributed to our society from those generation and generations came forward. The basis they laid for us and so on. And I just bought Dr. Philip's book on women and the contribution over the last 100 years in her book. And what the women of our society brought from a historical perspective and the base that they gave us. And I am reading it now, and it is a awe-inspiring book as far as I'm concerned, because you're learning of women in our history that had such pivotal parts that is something that we have ignored for years. As a matter of fact, I never knew their contribution. So it's something I think that is, again, recommended reading for a general public on that particular book. And I ain't giving Doc a free ad here. I just think it's an excellent, put together historical document, and it's factual. So, I think these are things that we need to encourage, and it's done by our own locals. Again, something that we need to be proud of.
Chris, there's something here for you, Mr. Diab. The Isle of Wight, some islands very close to the UK or UK dependent, does the same thing as Grenada in terms of attracting investors, and in some cases there is lots of corruptions as reported in the media. I'm waiting on them to be sanctioned. This is a comment. Another one.
Well, the caller is absolutely correct. And that Isle of Man that he talks about, they're associated with England, have been doing that for donkeys of years.
Yes.
And the program is very loose. And you never hear the UK government saying that we need to sanction and stop this and stop that, but they're looking to do to all of us through the European Union.
The other comment is, I believe just making the 19th October a holiday is good, but not much is done preparation-wise. That's a fair comment, I think.
And you could say that the National Celebrations Committee, you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And I believe this is a start.
Yeah.
And I believe as we progress this in the years to come, different things will evolve and different suggestions will come. And the hope is that they will take it on and make it what it is supposed to be. As I say, when we understand how the heroes thing will be done in terms of selection and process, then we could understand it a little better and comment. But for now, I think we must start somewhere, and I think starting by recognizing what has happened and giving it the solemnity that it requires in terms of how we recognize the day is a good start.
Yeah.
I don't see it as a bad start, and I think it's something we could build on as we get more and more people involved in that process of what it is supposed to be reflecting.
So just a review of what the plan is for tomorrow. I mean, as put up by the government, it starts at 9 tomorrow with a service at the stadium where they have some transportation allowance. I think there's all church bells will ring at 1 o'clock, is it? A minute of silence or something like that?
Well, the church bells ringing, and then there's a minute of silence. I don't know if it's the same thing.
And then you have candlelight vigil at the Carnage. What time is this?
I think it's 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock, so that's in the evening. Chris, look, this is mid-October. Christmas is around the corner. What is your projection in terms of the state of the economy and from the private sector point of view, or just spending capacity? What's your projection based on what the trend? What's
based
trending
on what
now?
I'm seeing, there is a lot of economic activity in the society still. Our government has done a good job in maintaining that level of activity, either through salary increases or the construction sector. The financial institutions have a lot of programs about mortgages and so on. So there's lending going on there, and there's people taking. The government did, in my view, over the 18 months, maintain the level of confidence in people that they could make investments and do, which is a positive thing, and it's something we need to encourage. So I think for the Christmas season coming, you've seen a lot of businesses stocking up, bringing in stuff early to ensure that people who wants to shop at that time, there are goods available, whether it's Christmas toys, food, whatever the case may be. we in my sector, in the construction sector, Christmas is a time for painting, so we ramping up production to be able to supply people their needs.
Yeah.
So I think that is a positive thing. That is something that a lot of us in the business community offering programs now, promotion programs to facilitate the Christmas and the time that it represents. So that is positive from an economic point of view. I think the concern people are having is from a governmental point of view, is you're hearing talk about the level of spending and whether the government could consistently continue that. And I cite one thing in the wage increase that have been given in statutory organization and through government, which averages 12 and sometimes 13, 14% over a 3-year cycle and more. And the question is, with that and the pending thing with minimum wage, you're hearing talk that the Financial Responsibility Act that had government wages at 9% tied to GDP was something that the IMF had heralded as an excellent thing because we have a lot of... You have a caller?
Chris, I have a caller, yes. So, caller, go ahead, please. Good evening. Good evening, caller. Go ahead, please. I'm not hearing anything. Chris, I hear you. But you talk to the people on the sidewalk, the vendors. Some of them selling stuff they imported, clothing, wear, different things. And they're saying, look, business is not hot. We're not seeing the revenue. We're not feeling it. Even when going back as far as Fisherman's Birthday in Guelph, some of the vendors were saying that it's not like last year. But we'll come back to that. Caller, go ahead, please. Good evening. You're on.
Hello?
Good evening. Yes, I'm hearing you. Hello? Seem to have a technical issue.
Good night, Mr. Campbell and Mr. Diari.
Yes, good night. I'm hearing you now. Go ahead, please.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, please. I'm hearing you.
They're not hearing.
Go ahead. Listen on your phone.
Yes, please.
Listen on your phone, please.
Okay. Yes, I am listening on my phone.
Okay, I'm hearing you loud and clear now. Go ahead, please.
And want to touch on one topic, agriculture.
Yes.
Now, several times you have spoken about agriculture and the young people not going into agriculture. But tell me, these modern days, you want someone to erect a jupa on a farm. If that individual erect a possible building that, look decent, you taxing them on it. Now tell me, you're going to tell the young people to go in the garden, go on your farm and work, and leave the garden with the same clothes that they work with, to go to a meeting or go to the supermarket or so forth, not being able to take a decent wash off. Now tell me which young people you could tell that. I mean, let us look at it. We condemn them and say they're not farming. They want to do hard work. Farming is slavery, hard work. You have to entice young people. So a young person going to the farm might plan 2 meetings and they decide, well, from the farm, I'm going to go to X meeting and X meeting. Can they go there in that condition that they went and worked with? I mean, these are the small issues that is deterring people from doing farming. Young people we have to treat them decent, modern day. Secondly, pretty and larceny. We are losing a lot of product through pretty and larceny. And government only talking about police this and police that. Man, listen, there are strategies we can implement to stop pretty and larceny. Because the thief, first of all, finds a place to sell his stuff. He makes plans before, and he picks your stuff up and he go and drop it for the person or the agent. Set laws in place to deter people from buying those stuff. Put structure in place that as soon as someone missed something and they report it to the police would have, look, we have those trained police, young police on the street in every village.
Yeah.
They should be asked to go into all those areas and investigate the goods that the people have. Supermarkets and those places. Once you report you lose something, you use yams, they pull down into all the areas and check to see where yams are. Where did you get the yams? And so forth. If we're not doing those final things, we will never stop pretty and larceny. Because a guy making plans to come and thief your goat tonight, and he go and he cut off the neck and he bring it and he drop it for the lady that runs a supermarket.
Caller, I want to thank caller. That's all the time we have. I want to thank you very much. Caller, I want to thank you very much for your contribution. That's all the time we have, but I'm thankful for your contribution. Chris, two very important points she's making. How do we attract young people into the sector? It's not business as usual. It has to be attractive. It has to be profitable. And secondly, the pre-deal larceny issue is a big issue. I know about it firsthand. You know, it really demoralizes you. It's just bad.
We have spoken about it. The senator for agriculture came on and spoke about it. Yeah. And the fundamental issue the police would highlight every time is they're not properly resourced to deal and respond to the pre-deal larceny. The caller is talking about response. And if somebody loses stuff, they move around and check to see. The issue is who moving around and how. You have to have vehicles, you have to have personnel. So we talk about budgets for pre-deal larceny, and the police would say that's a drop in the bucket because that cannot effectively police the situation because of how widespread it is. And it's all over the country. So, I mean, the start has to be, we have to get serious about resourcing our police and officers to deal with those issues and to deal with it quickly, and not only from the police dealing with it and making arrests, but have a court. Probably at a certain time in the day, as we have traffic court, we have one to just deal with that. So that there's quick justice and we understand the penalties that comes with that. So that would be
that's
my
very
comment
important
on
issues. But viewers, that's all the time we have. Chris, we have to do this again. We have to open the lines more regular for our viewers. But of course, you see that we need more time to do this. But we really want to thank the viewers and the callers in particular for their contribution. Any closing points, Chris?
No, I think we have situations in our country, areas that we have highlighted that need special attention. And you know, with our new government, probably we could look at those areas. They are doing good work in some areas. As I said earlier, I was part of a national energy policy consultation, which I thought was an excellent done document and how they did it. And that got good feedback. And the issue is, you know, we need to coalesce and come as a people. The sexual crimes issues are something that really burns me. And as a community, we have to help the police in this. The police can't do all. And unless we as a community come together, village by village, and deal and highlight the people. I mean, you hear husbands or wives beating up each other and you stay silent. And I don't think that is the way. And you say, oh, you know, there's an ad, you know, tourism is everybody's business. That's not my business. But this is your business.
It's everybody's business.
Because the cycle, if they have children, it will continue through the children unless you put a foot down and deal with it. So I think by at the end of the day, you know, we'd have liked more calling. But this is the first one, so probably by the next time, you know, we get
viewers, we want to thank you again for your presence and joining the conversation with us. Tomorrow is October 19th. It's a holiday. Whatever you do, be safe. And next week is a holiday also, the 25th.
The 25th. It's a Wednesday.
So Wednesday.
We don't have no program.
We don't have no program, but we'll see you on the 4th
of
November. Wow, the year is going rapidly. So have a good night. Thank you very much. All the best.
Community Forum came to you in association with the Grenada Development Bank.